Okay, we are back for the Blue-White Breakdown. Bob Flounders, Dave Jones, fresh off his Penn State men's basketball tour that I know that he enjoyed a little bit more than maybe Penn State football, but Dave is a basketball guy. Dave, I'm watching I have the Masters on in the background. It's muted, but always a fun tournament to watch.
Have you heard about this Korean kid?
There's quite a few of them.
This 20-year-old Korean kid named Tom Kim.
Yeah, I actually have heard. I have heard about him. Yes,
already won a couple of PGA events. He's going to
be you will watch at some point some of this Masters, will you not?
I will watch. I remember what our old boss Nick Horvath used to say is, Jonesy, I'll watch the pinnacle of any sport. and
it really is. I got to go down there last year. Bucket list. Just what a venue! It's just. And it was, Greg Pickle went down with me. A couple of our buddies hooked us up. They had a house down there. And I went down. The day that I went was the day that Tiger, I think, shot 3 under the first day, and then he blew up. But the course is surreal. Like, it's just, you can't imagine a more meticulously crafted course. Nothing is out of place. Everyone's behaving themselves mostly. I don't know that Pickle was.
What were you doing there?
That's right. We had to reel it in a little bit, but we did. It's actually just stunning to be there. But yeah, Tiger, as we talk about this on Thursday, just started his round and he just blew another putt. It looks like he's going to go to 3 over, so it might be a short stay in Augusta for the comeback.
Isn't it amazing that they still depend on Tiger in that sport? And what is he, 47?
He's exactly 47, right?
Yeah. And they still are hoping that somehow he'll pull a jack with all these broken bones in his legs. And, they're still hoping for the rebound of Tiger Woods. But there's nobody to turn the page to. Yeah. I mean, otherwise, they're doing you're stuck in live golf and that whole mess.
Yeah.
And it's not a sport that's in very good shape right now.
It's not. There's a lot of what they need is I'll tell you what they need. They need somebody like Rory to win this weekend because I think
his career slam.
Yeah. Plus, he's kind of become the guy. He's the kind of the guy that's kind of been trying to put live in its place, and he's the guy that's always been probably, other than Tiger when he was healthy, the most talented golfer. So we'll see. They need it. They need a big effort. He almost caught Scheffler last year. We'll see. Tiger is 3 over. Dave, let's turn our attention though.
Do you have the Jim Nantz catchphrase if he wins?
All I know is hello,
McElroy, McElright. Just I don't know, top of my head. What might he say? Yeah.
That's probably
Irish eyes are smiling. Is he Irish? What is he? What is he? I don't remember.
He is Irish.
Yeah.
Now I really hope he's in.
I thought of that because
now I'm going to be rooting for him.
Remember the first one he said for Connecticut when they won the national.
UConn, you can.
Just when you think you can, UConn has won the national championship.
Yeah, good old
came up the top of his head. Yeah.
Good old Jimmy Nantz. Hey, Dave, Penn State football, about eight or 9 days from the blue-white game, one of your favorites Saturdays of the year. But there was a little bit of news this week I want to get to with you because actually Johnny McGonigal sniped this. We had a podcast a day ago, and he talked about they were going to try and add a running back, and he actually mentioned Potts. Trey Potts from Williamsport is former Golden Gopher.
Millionaire.
Yep, he's a millionaire. He's going to come to Penn State, and great fit. I'm sure James Franklin feels better, but you know a little bit about this. He's a big back, 3-star guy, and I think you know exactly what you're going to get in Trey Potts if he takes the field. He's a guy that's going to punish you between the tackles a little bit. Talented player. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, he. I'm sure he wanted more from his career at Minnesota.
Yeah.
When he left, he was recruited, I think, by a lot of Eastern schools, and then Minnesota over on in the West. Mm-hmm. And that was probably the best deal he could get at the time. doesn't do any one thing spectacularly. Like you're not going to say he's a third down back necessarily. You're not going to say he's going to hurt you out of the backfield catching passes. But what he is a perfect complementary back, and he showed that he can carry the mail too if he has to. If Singleton or Allen gets hurt, he can come in and he can give you 20 carries. And he showed that when Mohamed Ibrahim, who I think was the best back in the league, went down a couple of years ago. Trey Potts checked in there and boom, 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 300-yard games, and then he got hurt. This was 2 years ago, so we still don't know exactly what happened to him. Some sort of internal injury.
Yeah, serious.
It was pretty serious because they carted him out of there through the back way. Through TCB Bank Stadium, or what is it? TCBY Yogurt Stadium. I can't remember what it's called. And they got him out of there, and no one really saw him. What exactly was wrong with him? But I'm pretty certain it was an internal injury. Anyway, took him a little time to get up to speed. Last year, he never quite. A little better during the end of the season, but maybe he needs a fresh start. And he will be a complimentary back. I don't think there's any way you can construe this as him taking Allen or Singleton's job. I think he knows that coming in, and maybe he can put up some numbers in backup roles, complementary roles that make him valuable to the NFL. I think that's what he's thinking of.
Yeah, he's at the very least, he's a nice little insurance policy for James. They got two running backs they really like that are really good, but they don't really have anything behind them. And they have two freshmen coming in August, but I think James would be a little bit more comfortable with somebody like Potts, who is a little bit ready to go in terms of whether it's pass protection, short yardage. He is proven. Dave, the other thing is, I mean, this is a move you definitely make, I think, when you're sitting on a good hand. And James Franklin knows that, he's got a lot of talent at a lot of different places. And I think that if you can get somebody like Trey Potts to come in and be a factor if he needs to be, or to win a game, or to close out a game, or just to give those young guys a rest in the second half of blowouts, I think it all makes sense. And the kid, I think, wanted to come back closer to Pennsylvania. Maybe I think he had a bunch of family members at the Minnesota game this year at Beaver Stadium. So I think it's a really good fit. I think James knows what he's getting in him, and I think that's one more thing he can cross off the list of maybe concerns going into the season.
Now, he's got a little bit of a burst. It's not like this guy's just a plugger,
right?
I mean, he knows the landscape. He knows every team in this league. He's played quite a bit, and it's a very good get. If you can get a guy like that out of the portal, give him a fresh start sometimes, especially a year after trying to recover from an injury, that ends up being a really good player for you. So we'll see. But on the surface of it, looks like a really good get for Franklin.
Plus, if anything, knock on wood for these young guys, but if anything would happen to one of those top two, he goes from being a nice insurance policy to being a very necessary piece of that running game. Because
that's what an insurance policy is. I mean, he's shown he can do it.
Right.
And I think he can do it.
Yeah. Hey, one thing I wanted to ask you about, it came out a little bit a while. I don't know if you saw it, but Bruce Feldman, early March, came out with his top 25 coaching rankings nationally. And James Franklin checked in at number 5. Pretty fair ranking. Ryan Day was right behind him, I think at number 6. But watching what James did last year, how they kind of turned the corner, the way that they were able to play, the way that he's been able to recruit. Any issue with him being a top 5 coach in college?
Bruce is always, I'm a big Bruce Feldman fan.
Yep.
But everyone has their, I wouldn't call them biases or prejudices, but they have their guys they really like. And when Bruce does that list, he's talking about being an overall CEO.
Yes.
And okay. I mean, but I don't see how you can rank him over Ryan Day. To me, that's preposterous. So,
I just want to, just so you know, the list is pretty formful through most of the top 10, but I did want to point out to you that your guy Lance Leipold checked in at number 10. Bruce had him at number 23 at this time last year, now up to number 10.
You really have a predisposition to mispronouncing names on purpose, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
That all the time.
I do.
Any IE name, you purposely mispronounce it.
I feel like it irritates somebody on this podcast, not me.
Not me. Maybe Brett Bilemma, as you call him, but not me.
You're a little irritated about it, so I'm going to keep going back to that well. But Lance has got to be a guy now that I mean, maybe Kansas will become something more than it is, but he's got to be a guy that's going to be a national guy real soon.
Well, he could have been one last year during, as Franklin calls it, silly season.
Yeah,
he was in the game for a lot of jobs. It's just that, I mean, he was in the game for the Wisconsin job.
Yeah,
it's just that he's the kind of guy. He's Frank Solich as far as interviews. He's just he's a lot like that. He's just never going to be a boom pow hire, a kind of guy you can sell to a fan base and get everyone excited. He's never going to be that guy, and that will be his ceiling, I'm afraid. So he's Snyder at Kansas State. You remember what kind of shape that program was in,
right?
And when did he come to Kansas State? Can't think.
I'm just remembering I'm trying to remember when Nebraska really started to take that team seriously. It would have been, Dave, in the early to mid 90s that they really started to get it together.
It came out of nowhere. Yeah. I mean, Bill Snyder did it with JC transfers at the time. It was a whole different landscape.
Michael Bishop.
Yeah, and he brought in a lot of guys who were juniors or seniors and had been around and maybe had some skeletons in their closets as far as grades or whatever, but he was a miracle worker. That was the most incredible reclamation project, along with Rutgers the first time around and Northwestern with Gary Barnett, I think, in the history of college football. And Lance Leipold's that kind of guy. He can do that, but I think he has a ceiling. I mean, Bill Snyder really never won anything at Kansas State. He the closest he came was they were and weren't they in the Big 12 title game in 98?
And they got beat by, they were a pretty heavy underdog. They choked.
No, 2000, right? 2000.
It was right around there. I don't know if it was A&M or somebody really got them, and then it was a devastating loss.
I guess it was 98, and they ended up playing Purdue. They lost like one game, and then they played Purdue in the Alamo Bowl, and they didn't show up. And that was the closest they ever got to serious national implications. But Leipold could stay there 20 years and just keep making Kansas productive and competitive. And there's something to say for that. There's nothing wrong with that. Kind of like Steve Peichel is making Rutgers basketball relevant. Will Rutgers ever win the Big Ten? I don't know, but they're always going to be competitive and tough. And Leipold can do that for Kansas football, which has been an absolute tire fire forever.
Yep. Okay, and one other thing. Your guy Jim Harbaugh was number 4, Franklin 5, Ryan Day 6. So there that goes.
I would rather read Bruce about quarterbacks. And I found I know this, we're getting ahead of the game, but I found his quarterback rankings coming into the NFL draft very, very revealing and insightful, because he gets scouts. He gets a lot of college coaches to talk to him off the record and tell him the truth. Mm-hmm. And he's got C.J. Stroud number 1, man. I mean, very clearly. And I think that's pretty interesting, considering that Carolina's got Frank Reich there now.
Yeah.
That could be a really good fit. But I don't. What do they have on the offensive line? Not much. The Panthers.
The Panthers did just take somebody in the first. They still have a couple other off. They got to get a little bit better on the offensive line for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I agree with him. I think C.J. Stroud is better than Bryce Young. He's Bryce Young's really good, but he's so small. I don't know what to. is he even really 5'10"?
I would say no.
Eventually, what's going to happen to those guys is what's happening now to Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray's kind of a knucklehead, so there's that. But it doesn't matter how quick they are. If they're that small, somebody's going to mash them eventually, and then it's a problem. I really like C.J. Stroud. I think he's cool under pressure, really can dissect defenses. I think he's going to be a terrific pro. So that would be my choice.
Yeah. So I think Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, he had Stroud 1, Young 2, Clifford 3, I think, in his quarterback rankings. Is that right?
I'm not partaking in your snarky nonsense. I won't do it. I can't do it.
You can be pretty snarky when you want to. Let's just roll the tape back on a couple of these podcasts, my man.
Were you there when Clifford was upset about not being invited to the conference?
I was right there when I heard it.
Did you ask all the questions or just 2 or 3 of them?
There were. It was a question that he was. I was stunned at the response. I mean, he was ready for it, but I don't even know that I would have thought about asking him about it. But he was so upset that it kind of became like, and then he just kept building on it and building on it and building on it. I'm like, oh, okay.
Hey, I like it. I like it.
I mean, whatever motivates the kid.
That's right. That's right. And
he's definitely one of those guys, Dave, that I could joke about it, but he is Mr. Determined. You can just tell he's already a success off the field, and if he gets a bee in his bonnet, so to speak, he is gonna do whatever it takes to shove it right up somebody's you know what and make an NFL team any way possible. So now I don't think I'd bet against the guy.
Where did you hear bee in his bonnet? Is that Scranton or what?
That's something I think I heard back in the 80s. I think my mom might have said that. But
there have been much lesser talents who've had long, lucrative careers in the NFL. I think of Brian Hoyer out of Michigan State.
How about McGloin?
Yeah, well, Brian Hoyer, though, isn't he still playing?
Yes, he is.
He's still playing.
I was getting Hoyer and Bobby Hoying a little bit confused, but you're right. Yeah,
and Brian Hoyer I think he's still in the league.
Yeah,
he's like
he just signed a contract. Yeah, I think he's with the Raiders now.
Big Belichick favorite, and I mean, there's other guys who just kind of hung around and got a check. So if you prove that you're competitive and you can be functional, you can have a long career.
Not an knucklehead, you study, you're up to speed. Yep, absolutely.
Todd Collins, remember Todd Collins? I mean, he was in the league for like 14 years.
Don Strock. How about Don Strock?
Where did Don Strock come from? I don't even remember.
I don't know. I just remember that he was like the guy when the Dolphins had that guy, was it David Woodley? And they had they had the killer bee defense, but they couldn't really trust Woodley. They give the ball to Don Strock for 2 series, and he'd score 10 points and they'd win.
84 Super Bowl, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
David Woodley started it. No, the 80. It
was the year that Riggo got him on 4th and 1. I think it was the 82 season, 83 Super Bowl. Yeah. Strike year, Dave.
David Woodley.
Yeah. LSU.
If you did a list of Super Bowl starting quarterbacks, would he be at the bottom?
Dave, you know who started at Super Bowl 5.
I just threw it up. I threw it underhand knowing you'd hit it out of the park.
Dave,
Craig Morton will always be.
He also started in Super Bowl 12 against Dallas, which is even more enjoyable.
Huh? What?
He started for the Broncos against Dallas in Super Bowl 12 and just got – he's the reason why Randy White and Harvey Martin won the co-MVP.
Didn't – I think Norris Weiss.
Norris Weiss came in and actually scored he led him on the only touchdown drive.
Big day for you. I know that was.
It was a big day. Terrible Super Bowl. Very, very, well, actually.
Yeah, but an exhibit of what a great defensive front the Cowboys had. Holy crap. Harvey Martin in his glory.
Too tall,
Ed Jones.
Too mean, Ed Jones. All of those. Larry Cole, underrated guy.
Defense, forgotten 1977.
I feel like we've gotten off the rails here, Dave. I did want to get back to one thing because of some of the. You're in the know when it comes to Penn State men's basketball. I think it's pretty clear, and I just wanted to get I wanted to get your just your thoughts on what Mike Rhoades has been able to do. Number one, with the staff that he brought in, and any thoughts on that? And also, I know there's some transfer portal targets he might have a shot at. Is there anything you could share on that front as he tries to kind of find his footing in his first year at Penn State?
The portal is an interesting place, especially because Penn State's losing a lot of guys right now.
Yeah,
and no announcements of any guys coming in. The big gem that everyone wants out of VCU, where Rhodes was coaching, is Ace Baldwin.
Right, great name,
Adrian Ace Baldwin, who's a terrific lead guard. If he gets Ace Baldwin, then Kanye Clary is probably out to shoot too. So that would be everyone leaving the team. Kebajai entered the portal a couple days ago. Evan Mahaffey, who would be a very big loss, entered last week. He's not keeping too many guys, so he'd better be getting a couple of guys from VCU. Nothing is broken yet. I imagine it's tied to NIL because everything is these days. You're not just looking for a good coach in a good school. You're looking for, what's in it for me. Mm-hmm. And I would be too, and so would you. Anyone who bitches about that or says, I hate NIL, well, what would you be doing? And who is the product in college athletics?
Right.
So there's that. As far as the coaches, the big news is Joe Crispin is going to be on the staff, which is a kind of a he's kind of a strange mix in that, Joe is going to be an offensive assistant. He's going to do a lot of work with offensive game planning. And it's not like Mike has run schemes that don't take advantage of pace and tempo and all that. But Joe has some very hardwired philosophies about how offensive basketball ought to work. And it's almost like if you know anything about motion offense, it's almost like a speed motion offense where the players are given a lot of leeway to make decisions on the fly. And it's just basic principles about diagonal passes and cutting and moving, and everyone moves very fast. And I would hope that they're on the same page with that, because Joe Crispin is going to be heard. He has very definite opinions on how it ought to work, and I think he's ultimately got to be a head coach, as he was at Rowan, and he will be. But for the time being, he's going to be scouting opposing defenses and implementing schemes and teaching craft. And the parameters of his position say that he can engage in anything normal in coaching. He just can't recruit on the road. That's what he's not allowed to do. So he is a very interesting hire, because I think he's going to dominate all offensive philosophy, and they will probably come to some loggerheads on several occasions about philosophy and what they want to do, because he gives his players a lot of leeway. He believes in the players ultimately making all decisions about what's going on the court and trusting them to make those decisions because they've been well taught to begin with. He believes in stream of consciousness, as opposed to, and if you look at Big Ten basketball, it's so overcoached in a lot of ways. It's what happens to, they've got really good coaches, but they're too hands-on. And I think
you think Tom Izzo's a hands-on coach, Dave?
Well, yeah, and so is Matt Painter, and so are all the best coaches in the league. But Izzo gives his guys a little bit of leeway. I just think there are so many guys who dominate. College basketball has always been a coach's game simply because they held all the power. Well, that's going away. It's gone away. So why not revise your philosophy in the direction of Joe Crispin? I think he has the right idea. you acquiesce in a certain way because they're getting paid now. They have more power. It used to be you could hold a kid's grant over his head and say, my way or the highway. You can't do that anymore.
Just like Robbie Benson in one-on-one.
You can't do that anymore with the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Because it was almost like before the reserve clause in Major League Baseball. You signed a letter of intent, and you were stuck there, not just for the year we were playing, but for another year after. And for a long time, that was true. And none of that's true anymore. So why not let the players make the right decisions if they make the right decisions? Pull them if they don't. But that's going to be an interesting dynamic moving forward in Penn State basketball.
Dave, I looked at a shot on social media of the Penn State coaching staff, and is it just me or one guy looked like a dead ringer for Phil Martelli? I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if you're aware of that. Can you confirm anything about that? It looks
yes, his son is on the staff. I as a joke, you know what? You're a joke. Get out of here. As a joke, I can't say joke anymore without doing Howard Eskin living.
I'm still waiting for this. I guarantee you could write a great story about Howard Eskin, and you guys would probably get into it.
When he quits,
then he would respect it. He would respect
when he quits.
Okay,
and he's never going to quit. So I'll be dead by the time that story is ready to go.
All right.
It's Jimmy Martelli. Somebody said, it wasn't you, was it? He said if he wanted to go out. Oh, I know who it was. Said if he wanted to go out for Halloween, all he'd have to do is grow his hair out on the sides and then shave it. And he could go out as his dad.
Wow, it's striking the resemblance. It really is.
Yeah, he had a little bit of a tough time at Rutgers. I think he's overcome that, and he's a very dynamic guy. He's a little more hot-blooded than, not that his dad isn't, but Phil is very calm on the sidelines, always with his hands behind his back like this.
I think that's the image he likes to project.
Yeah, right.
That's what I think, yeah.
Well, but he doesn't – the funny way he gets into referees is very calm, and refs just don't like it if you're too demonstrative. If you sit back, you stand back and say, is that the kind of call you're going to make all night?
Yeah.
Is that kind of – just like that.
Yeah.
Then they don't get too upset. Just don't show him up, and that's always been Phil's.
I thought the refs really enjoyed Kim Mulkey though in that LSU.
What the hell?
I knew that would trigger you. How do you
get away with that?
Like a mummer, you know that she dresses
how
like
you get away with
out of the mummers parade, and she was on the court the whole game.
She ran into a guy. She was like, "Get out of my way! I'm trying to see the game." To a ref along the sideline, no technical.
Phil Martelli would not do that. But does Jimmy, have you had a chance to talk to Jimmy at all, or what do you think of him?
I have not. I mean, it's been a long time. I think
you know his dad pretty well, correct?
Yeah, and I talked to Phil about this staff like 3 or 4 days ago. Because I knew he would know everybody. He knows everyone anyway, but especially guys. Mm-hmm. And what he said was that they're all, and this wasn't on the record, but there's no reason it couldn't have been. It's like that they're all really good dudes.
Yeah.
That they work really hard, and that they're going to work hard here, and that they're first class type of individuals. And he likes that about Mike, and he thinks Mike's terrific. Mike, again, Mike Rhoades is not going to be a sexy hire that maybe some Penn State fans wanted. But they are always, like Steve Pikiell's teams, they are always going to be in every game because their defense is so good.
Right.
He's like a fundamentally sound version of a Pat Chambers team because their defense is always going to keep them in games. And in the end, there aren't enough Penn State basketball fans, Penn State fans who really love basketball that they're going to know any different as long as they win games. If they win games, they're going to be, we are, and then, everything is going to be fine. So they don't care if it's 61-54 as long as they win games. And there will be some 61-54 games in this regime. But next year is looking really grim, and it might have been with Micah Shrewsbury too. There's just too much turnover in this team. You've lost basically everybody. And Seth Lundy declared for the NBA draft, who I think he's going to stick in the NBA and be a player in that league for a while. I think he's clearly the one NBA talent on that team. And maybe Andrew Funk off the, as a hired gun, 12-minute a game shooter. Wait, did you see enough of them to know? about Andrew Funk?
I honestly, I was like probably the Penn State bandwagoners. I didn't even get interested, Dave, until the very end.
Well, you did see the A&M game. Did you watch the A&M game?
I saw part of it. Yeah, that was that was quite an exhibition.
Yeah, well, he's got a little Kyle Korver in him.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying. A little J.J. Redick.
Yeah.
And in fact, Brian Anderson compared him to J.J. Redick during the game because that's what it was like. Yeah. Catch and shoot, careen off screens, really fast. Get the feet organized and up, and it's gone. Anyone can use that, especially when they shoot from deep. So I think Andrew Funk could get a chance in the NBA. Jalen Pickett probably not so much, but interesting team. But the problem is they're all gone.
Yeah,
it was going to be tough for Shrewsbury. It's going to be tough for Mike.
Okay, Dave, we had a full menu on this podcast. We started out talking about Penn State football, James Franklin's ranking, Lance Leipold. Did I get that right, Dave?
No, Leipold.
Shit.
Did it right.
Edit that last part out where I said that bad word. We talked about Trey Potts. Sean Clifford made an appearance on this podcast. We got to Craig Morton, and one of the worst starting quarterbacks I've ever seen in my life, and we've kind of been able to navigate it back towards basketball. Mike Rhoades, Phil Martelli's son Jimmy, Joe Crispin, right? Joe Crispin,
correct? Not John Crispin, right?
That's the one. I always get scared I'm going to mention the wrong one, but I just
kind of did a travelogue of your favorite Big Ten quarterbacks. We didn't mention Graham Mertz, but everybody else.
He's at Florida. I don't know. I'm telling you, if he turns into some kind of star at Florida, I don't know. I don't know how I'm gonna take it. I'm not.
What about Spencer Petras? What do you think?
I'm not gonna take it well, Dave. I'm not gonna take it well. But you know what? Spencer Petras, I thought he did what he could in Brian Ferentz's system. Yeah. I don't know what Cade McNamara is going to be able to do in Brian Ferentz's system, but I do know that they're coming to Penn State this year, Dave, and there's a good chance that could be a night game. I think it might even be the whiteout game. And don't you worry. I will remind the Penn State fans about all of the booing and complaining they did 2 years ago about Penn State players taking a dive to stop Iowa's up-tempo offense.
I reverse engineered all that, and they were all real injuries. You remember that, right?
I know, but that's not going to stop anyone from asking Ferentz about it.
That was a nasty, drunken crowd out there.
It was a drunken crowd. Drunken and nasty often go hand to, often go together.
We always thought Iowa was such nice people, but that was not. They are nice people usually.
No, I think Iowa people are nice to Iowa people. I don't know. Maybe that they're
that's not true. I mean, I was just in Des Moines, and the guy in the shuttle bus out to the airport would not quit talking. He was just being nice.
Yeah, that was just one person, though, Dave.
No, they're all like that, except when they get a little liquor in them, and then
a little liquor.
Things happen.
A little liquor. Was the shuttle guy drinking?
No, but it's like 6 a.m. All I want to do is get to the airport. How do you like our city? Here's a nice view of the Capitol.
Yeah. Well, had he been drinking and driving, I'm pretty sure he would have been angry.
He was like 71. He was the nicest guy in the world. I was just glad I was in the vehicle.
They live to like they're 95 in Iowa.
That's 20 degrees and 40-mile-an-hour winds out there.
71 is the new 41 in Iowa. Like, just get used to it.
Not for me, buddy.
All right, Dave, we'll chat next week as we get closer and closer to the blue-white game, one of your favorite events of the year. I can't wait to talk about it next week with you.